One Algerian philosopher, Franz Fanon, in his book Wretched of the Earth, describes to us a notion that, every generation must identify its generational mission, but the choice to fulfill this mission or betray it is entirely up to them. Of recent, the youth in Kenya have been up in arms, and they have forced the Ruto government to cause massive structural adjustments in terms of the government, system, but also the entire administration and public expenditure at large. In Uganda, there is a looming march to parliament on the 23rd of this particular month, and obviously all eyes and energies seem to be geared towards that. But amidst all that is a comment by the minister in charge of internal affairs, and that is General Otafire, who of course we know has a very rich history in terms of this country's revolutionary struggle. So he seems to be imploring young people to, as media put it, rise up or demand for accountability, and of course castigating the leaders who are abusing public office. Viewers, this informs this week's episode of the Youth Roundtable. I'm joined by a panel of distinguished young people. But it's now my pleasure to introduce to you, and in no particular order, the only lady on the show. She has been missing for a while, but we are glad to have her back. Tracy Ankunda is the name. She is a lawyer by training and also from the Bushenyi District Youth Council. Tracy, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Kidega, for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you feel? You had checked our show.
I had not, and I have never done so, but it is also good that we have as many young people come on the show as part of mentorship, but also to have their view of the different topical discussions that we always have.
Wow, interesting. Next to Tracy Lynn is a software engineer by training, but also of late, he gives great insights on political matters. Mwanje Samuel is the name. Mwanje, all the way from Mitiana. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm good, sir. How are you, sir? It's a pleasure being here once again. I'm glad to be a part of this show. I look forward to a fruitful show, and thanks to the viewers out there.
Yeah, pleased to have you. How is Masaka? Sorry, Mitiana rather. Sorry.
Mitiana is well, Mitiana is good, and anytime Mitiana is Mitiana.
Sure. we shall be waiting.
Absolutely.
Next to myself is Mata Joseph. Mata comes all the way from Masaka City or Masaka District. Mata is also the regional coordinator of the Yellow Youth Movement in Buganda. Mata, we are pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, Moses. For your tremendous service, and also honestly would like to appreciate Civic Space TV. It has become a sine qua non for the political Eldorado peregrination, so I appreciate you for that.
I think I may need to get my dictionary very close in this show because I need to make interpretations. But Mwanje, let me begin with you and just observing what is happening in the region, for example. How timely is General Otafire's comments as may perceive it? But also, how do you perceive it generally? Like, what do you make of it?
Thank you, Moses, once again. General Otafire makes these remarks on a graduation ceremony where, of course, he was invited as a guest of honor. His comments, in my analysis, should be regarded as a great lament. In fact, if there will be people who will write his history, I implore them to create a page in his book and call it the Lamentations of the General.
Sure.
Because the General seems to have woken up a bit late to what has been befalling this country for quite now a number of years. He seems to, be intentional in his speech, but the intention actually, in my opinion, doubts the spirit in which he says whatever he said during that speech. I read in between the lines that the General is trying to satisfy the emotional excitement of the youths in this country in a way of reading between the times. You know, when you're to discuss what the general was giving as his speech, you can't discuss it in isolation of what has just happened of recent in the Republic of Kenya. So, in my take of things, I see the general is just being intentional and, you know, satisfying the emotional excitement of the youths to show them that, you know what, we are well, you know, abreast with what is happening in the country, but you see, we are also well aware that the youths can do something tremendous.
So you're saying the comments were not very genuine, like it's more than meets the eye?
Of course, I can't say they were not very genuine, because the matters the general is speaking about are genuine matters.
But does he actually?
I seem to say that the information is genuine, the informer is not, in my take of things. The information is genuine. The matters that he was addressing are really matters that should concern every youth of our generation.
Sure.
He's tackling matters of lack of jobs. He's tackling matters of the skilled labor force of this country being, repatriated to work in the Mediterranean, where I say very much of it has died in the Mediterranean, simply because they feel in their homeland the resources are not enough to cater for them, so they have chosen to, go out and seek jobs. We know these are issues. Very many of our colleagues have graduated but can't find work to do in their own homeland. It's talking about the issues of corruption. Of course, these are genuine issues and concerns of this country. So the information is genuine. I doubt the informer is genuine.
Okay, fair enough. Let's just put a full stop there. Tracy?
Yes.
What is your own comment? You've had Comrade Mwanje. He thinks that it is just playing to the gallery, trying to create a facade about something, but yet, I mean, where has he been all this while? Have these things just begun happening today? So is it trying to sort of contain the pressure that the Gen Z or the youth seem to be mobilizing around?
Well, I did listen to the speech, and I remember he's one person that said he graduated, I think, in 1975.
Yes.
Now, 1975, I think almost my father was maybe like 2 years.
Sure.
Yes, like 2 years. And he adds that 50 years have passed from the time that he graduated. Now, the honest question is, he also brings in how he went to the bush and how these are things that they have fought so that they should not happen. But 50 years down the road, if the cause should have built progress, then I think by now we should not hear issues around corruption. We should not hear issues around unemployment, but we should also not listen to issues around dissatisfaction of the general mass. Now, if he brings it in a way that, look, we have gone to the bush 50 years down the road, as if to put it in context that this is the first instance that he's seeing, or this is the wake-up call that he's putting across. But for the entire time that he has been in the system, for the entire time maybe he has been a minister, where has he been? But also to put it in a question of hope, that he also tries to remind maybe majority of us that you can do something. Being someone who is in the government, usually people have said that the government, people in government are not saying anything about some of these things. So him also saying a word or two could be a sign of hope, maybe to those silent young people, especially in the ruling government. I have seen people, when you come up to speak against corruption, people already term you opposition, but yet the repercussions of what happens is affecting all of us. And people are not engaged in corruption because they identify with this party or because they are this tribe. people are generally in that because of the influence of power that they have, but also because they feel they are untouchable. There is someone maybe who can bail them out, and scenarios around that. Today when I was coming, I boarded the judge guy. I did not know him. But I realized that most of us young people are really struggling with a lot. So he tells me that he purchased a helmet 1 week ago. And when he did so, he told me around 250 shillings. But he told me he parked his motorcycle somewhere and someone picked the helmet and took it. That means it is a fellow border man that took that helmet. What does this show? That
we cannot know for sure. It could be anyone who could have taken it.
No, most likely,
Okay, yeah, most likely.
It could be most likely. Now, the question is that every time we distance ourselves from some things, it is the more that we shall later face the same repercussions. Today you think it doesn't concern you, but tomorrow it does concern you. But again, also in his speech, he implores and reminds young people that hope is very paramount. He does state that we can do something. However much he brings it in at a late point, but again, we can do something. And I think that is why we are having the social media activism.
Okay, Tracy, just genuinely asking. You're speaking about hope and you seem to be in agreement with what the general said. Okay, what hope do those young people who were arrested in 2021 during the presidential election campaign, who up to date have not left Luzira? What hope can you tell them? What hope do you tell a young person in Karamoja who, who government had been trying to assist in terms of, iron sheets and livelihood, who up to date cannot survive? What hope? So is the hope just on the surface or it is practical? What hope do you tell that young woman who is not sure whether she will be able to give birth in a government hospital owing to the nature of our public health systems? So where is the hope exactly?
So I personally think that it is also paramount that when we envision hope, hope cannot be detached from reality like you have stated it. But then again, it is also not good that we lose it all and say we cannot do anything about it.
Because if people in positions of power are asking us to have hope, then because they have the power, they have the instruments of power.
So I think
they should not be lamenting like you say. They should be acting and say, no, we shall do A, B, C, D to get us to this position.
That is why I earlier started by saying that at what point does he bring this in? Because even when you listen to the entire speech, you now seem to look at it as a political question. Issues of who said such and where did they say such from and for whom.
Okay, let's put a full stop there and I'll bring in Ndugumata, your general analysis.
Thank you, Moses, and I will start by thanking you again. In communication there is what we call status conferral. You speak of a subject high authority. So I think I am a good authority on that topic. But I will start my disquisition with a few words from Frederick Douglass. He said that those who profess to favor freedom yet depreciate agitation are like those that want crops without plowing. That statement has what we call latent and manifest meaning. Frederick Douglass, for those of you who do not know him, he led what we call the African Proclamation in America during the reign of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, that forced the blacks to be free from slavery. Now, when I delve into the words of General Severino Kaindi Otafire, I should look at what makes it a logical necessity for having made the statements of the same. Because it's very important. We will not simply look at what he said, but what makes it a logical necessity. One, when you look at what is going on in the country, extravagance of parliament, corruption. When you look at the progeniture of members of parliament that constitute what we call a conglomerate of parliament, their origin, where do they come from? Some are people that were in pecuniary destitution. They are now in parliament. Meaning that all their survival, the enrichment, is from parliament. So that is what triggered the general. But also we must be very, very careful. I want to skedaddle away from what my colleagues have said. We must be very careful. Because when I was reading Obama's book, The Promised Land, he has written 3. It is not so beautiful to write a book on someone that is still living, on a living person, especially a politician. Because a single day can change what someone has done in 100 years. So for General Kayindo Otafire to come out and make a statement of the same, of course attacking those that are onchos and sachems in the same government, speaks to you that he has learned. Nature abhors virtue. You reach a time and you've served for a long time, but you must not let nature give you a peregrination, give you a path, because when it does that, it dictates that can cause a repugnant state, a very distasteful state. So that is why I think General rose up and said, enough is enough. I should stand as one of the apparatchik in the same system and condemn what is going on, which is true. And also, democratically, to me who believes in democratic principles in my country, dissenting voices within an institution, it's what makes it grow. It makes it grow. So we should not look at General as though he's posturing as a saint now. Daniel Torotich Arap Moi, those that saw him in 1980s and 90s may have not believed that he's the one of 2022. He had to adjust. A man who was very strong. His decisions were as hard as iron. They were conscriptly maneuvered in pieces of iron. A staunch dictator. But by late 1990s, had to sit down and did what we call a self-brutal criticism. That we should leave a Kenya better than that we were left with. Because there should be continuity. There is no beauty and fruit in building a country for 30 years, 40 years. But the day you live with that country. It makes a country basket case a failed state. So I think now we should be happy as Ugandans. That now if a senior person, an apparatchik, one of the onchos that orchestrated the Bush War from 81 to 86 has now made a statement that is in contradiction with what is at play. So I think we should be happy, commensurate with what is at play. The general was right to really make such statements.
Yeah, Ndugumata, and I hear you very well. My question just comes in, and I have to assume the question of many Ugandans is that, okay, he has come up to speak now, but because we assume that now because he has spoken, then institutions are going to maybe take action. But you see, the problem for me is that if institutions have to wait for individuals to first express their dissatisfaction, for them to come up and act, if the Uganda police needs to first wait for the president or the minister to first condemn corruption, for them to actually prosecute, you know, to detail a corrupt official, then I think that's a problem to me.
Absolutely.
Because I think institutions should be able to swing into action with or without the statement. Yes.
Absolutely. You see, Ndugumata seems to convene us and correct us to sing praising songs to the general for having made a statement. I want to remind him that I want to remind him that this is not the first of the kind of statements we've had. Not from even generals, but from the president himself, the commander-in-chief. He has, on many occasions, you know, weared that, you called it what? A brutal iron. You called it a brutal iron. He puts on his combat, he gets tough, and says, this time round, we are crushing anyone who will be caught corrupt. He has gone ahead to put up anti-corruption unit in the State House. Now there is one he instituted in the URA and put someone. So Ndugumata must realize that there has been all these efforts. The question we must interrogate on this panel and as young people is, why are these efforts failed?
Is the political will there in the first place?
That is the question we want to interrogate. Is the political will there? So because you see, once the political will is not there, and you have a regime that is, you know, that is mingled with longevity, and therefore there is dictatorship, then you can't have corruption dealt away with. So we can't sing praising songs to the general for having lamented. I call it a lament because it says, you know, we went to the bush and fought. Yes, well and good. But these things have been occurring at their site. Okay, the general says there are those that said, don't accept anyone who says they will steal on your behalf. These people are known. The general is a full minister of internal affairs. He has the liberty to convene a press conference and addresses these issues. Why is he waiting for a function where there are young youths excited about their graduation and then tries to give them a timely speech? I call it to appease their emotional excitement. I have ever graduated before. When you sit in that tent, all you want to listen to is someone giving you the hope and promise that out there where you're going, there is hope. That's why my colleague here talked about hope. So the general seems to give hope, but on ground, what is happening? So we can't sing praising songs right now to the general. All we want to see is like action.
So it is something like, I think even it's in the Bible, that, you know, hope without, you know, faith without
faith
action,
without is dead faith. Is dead faith.
So him giving us all this hope and what without the real action taking place.
But also, Comrade Moses, you can't look at the general in isolation of what has just happened of recent. Let me tell you, what has happened in the Republic of Kenya has created an alarm in every nation on this continent. I can tell you. It has created an alarm everywhere because you have an uprising not orchestrated by any politician, but an uprising of a generation that is simply dissatisfied. So you do not have anyone to compromise. You do not have anyone to, you know, to cocoon somewhere. And
there's no structure.
There is no structure. You just have an uprising. People who are dissatisfied. And you see, any president who is upright and sober like the president we have, I must credit him for that. They are aware of this. Because you see, what has always failed us is relying on politicians. Every time you rely on politicians, every time you rely on people with power to think that they will be your advocate, you end up failing. So the general is, you see, trying to play to the recent event. Is just actually reactionary. He's just playing to the recent event that you see. This is what has happened. Therefore,
I'll give you more time.
Therefore, young guys, you can also wake up. So, me, I can't chant him for having said whatever I said. I rather have to look into the lines because we have had sorts of the same before.
Because he is Minister of Internal Affairs.
Exactly.
I think Uganda Police.
What
is all under
which people have been brought to book.
Why can't rather than him coming to TV, why can't he summon the IGP and say, I am your minister, I supervise you. Why isn't this matter being prosecuted and ABCD?
Absolutely.
Yes, Ndugumata.
He has taken much of my time.
I will give you time.
But it is not a pass of whether it had the political goodwill or not. I am very circumspect with my words and very careful because language is very technical. When I said that we should be happy, if you're driving, Moses, and you on phone, and a madman tells you, you man, you're going to cause an accident, will you mind about the character of the person or what the message? What will be key? Yeah, he's mad, but you're on the phone and you know it is wrong.
But
I
you see,
think
at that point, even the person who you are claiming is mad, how do they have the ability to say that? Because we assume that someone who is mad, their mental state is not one that can say, now for you on phone.
But of course,
probably a phone to them is like a brick, and they don't understand it. So
no, let's assume he tells you. Will you look at the character of the person telling you?
I think,
or the message.
I think at that point you look for a remedy. Oh, I'm on phone. Oh,
absolutely, the message. You receive the message. So I think we should not look at the character of General Kayindo Otafire. We should look at the message. What was he telling the younger people? And I think we've changed the topic. We are going into kurankum associated with operationalization and the failures of the government. Because I remember
there is nothing wrong with us expanding the scope.
Absolutely,
yeah. Depth is good.
Absolutely,
and is good.
Because when we expand, we shall not build a subject and then pre-assort. You understand? So, my message from General Kayindo Otafire is what I take as important. Don't allow people to tell you that we steal for you. So, that is important. But, to get back to subject matter, I was still telling you that people change. The Chidega today is different. So, if they have started, some of them within the system, if they have come up to condemn,
we should welcome it and say...
We should welcome it, because it was not the end of that day.
But you know,
for many years it has not.
I think what Mwanje is saying is that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Absolutely.
Are their hands clean first? I think that's the question, because we have had all this corruption. And okay, first clean, first wash your hands, first address what has been happening. Those who have been accused and implicated in corruption, let them be prosecuted, tried before court. Let us first do that. Then you can tell us, okay, now there is hope. I think that is what the Samuels are saying, that, you know, first address some of these issues before you give us more hope.
And again, I think he tries to put it in a way that we have failed, but you can do something.
Absolutely.
We have failed, but you can do something. But actually, again, these are people who should be holding... Okay.
No, continue.
These are people who should be holding accountable in the offices that they occupy. So if maybe as a leader of a certain program, you're telling us we have failed, but you can do something. How do you expect us to do something when you are the same person in the system that we intend to fight against? Is it also to show us that you are on your own, even when you tell us that we can do something? Should you make it look like young people, you have the energy, you have the force, but when people show up, police is everywhere, you're sabotaging them, you're telling them, no, don't do this. People are against some things online, you're trying to look down for them. Is the space free for them? Is the space free for them to stand out or to stand up and say, no, this is not working? But then again, this is not the first protest we've had. We've had other protests before. We've had people march, we've even had, the most annoying part, people of the government, some corrupt individuals march against corruption. But then what happens? So is it a song like my brother says, or is it a matter of us saying we can keep talking about corruption, we can walk against corruption, we can post against corruption, and I think also entirely you feel like the hope is not there because of results not coming up.
Actually, just right there is that you heard the president make a statement such as, don't be on my gun side, I want to fight corruption. Less than a week later, the Speaker of Parliament is in Luengo endorsing corruption and saying, you know, you people, your MP will be your MP forever.
The Speaker,
yes. Maybe these statements don't mean anything, because if the president can make the statement and he's contradicted, then
I come from Bushenyi, Igara East constituency.
And your MP
my
is also...
area MP is one of those in the coolers for corruption. Now also to trigger us as young people, that even the social media activism that we are putting up, we do not have a united force. The other day I posted something about him in regards to the allegations, and someone told me that I am wasting my time. A young person, he told me that I was wasting my time, and then went ahead to say that he will be his MP forever. One, because maybe he expects to be on his campaign team come next year. He expects to get some small mugati from him. And again, he goes to tell me that he's our family friend. So because he's our family friend, I must support him. But then again, he's like, but he's a thief. Now, what does that show? That even us as individuals, in some way, we have made corruption look comfortable within our own reaches. We are not willing to come outside of that comfort zone and some of the things that we believe in, but also we are looking at it generally at a point of view of individualistic gains. And that is why I have had several comments on it is corruption because it doesn't favor you, but when it favors you, it is not corruption. You get? So it should be a trickler to us to remind us that today, if you're saying that the money you have in your pockets is your money, which money are they saying that is being stolen when you have your money at home? But you forget the reality that people in your village in Chabjimbi, where I come from, there are no health centers. The ones that are there, there is no medicine. And sometimes I've said this over time, that people always want to front things because maybe they think they equally or individually benefit from them. It is not when your mother goes to the hospital every day and does not find medicine that you feel unbothered. It is when she dies that you remember, oh, I should actually have done something. Oh, I can do something. So we should realize that the hardships sometimes and the grievances are points for us to have a team and to move as also a united force. I have seen very many young people try to show cause, but every time they show up, we have diverting voices. Voices of this one is being funded by this, voices of this one is pushing their own agenda, but also voices of this one is looking for fame and popularity, where we tend to divide ourselves into small brackets, but yet we can equally as a team push something for the better cause of us. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. Mwanje, before we take a short commercial break, I'll just end with you. Where does this leave the outlook of the state? Because the Minister of Internal Affairs is telling the country that we have corruption and corruption is bad and things like that. But the principle, the deep pocket theory is that to whom much is given, much is expected. We have given you power as an MP, as a minister. We expect you to act on our behalf. You coming back to us to tell us, no, you youth, come and rise up, come and help us fight. Is it a failure? Is it an indictment on the state?
Do we even have a state?
I think we do.
Yes, we do.
We do.
State. We do have the state.
We do.
The state. At least the four principles that must be met for a state to exist. At least I know we meet those.
By books we do. By books we do. By reality we don't.
Okay.
That one I can tell you. Because you see, Comrade Dega and the viewers, we must know that once you have a regime that has lived for as long as this regime has lived, a time reaches when what you even call the state is infused within the people or within that small cocoon of people that hold the power. Because he clearly mentions, and she clearly mentions, that we are the person in context or the person making these statements is a veteran in the struggle. Is a veteran in the struggle. 50 years down the road, you hear a veteran say, we didn't fight for people to steal. That's a lamenting statement. So in other words, the veteran is simply portraying a failure within the so-called state you're assuming to be existent, but it seems to speak from a point where he's powerless about whatsoever is happening. The man is powerless. That is why when he sees an example of what has happened to Kenya, in other words, he's back to himself, what he called reflection. You know, over time when you go on aging, because the man said, he clearly mentions in his statement that I don't have long. He said I have about 10 to 15 years. He even mentions them. Me, I cannot mention the years I have. I'm not yet at that level. So the man is simply doing a self-introspection and for whatsoever has happened. But again, it does not offer a solution because he's powerless. The state is existent in only Museveni and the entire family. The man is powerless. We are talking about a veteran, a comrade who has occupied big positions, is now a minister of internal affairs. He's simply lamenting. So we can't speak of a state. That clearly shows it is not there. We have said he has all the instruments of power, he has all the authority to even summon some of these people that have been, caught in these scandals of corruption. Therefore, to speak of the picture that is portrayed of our state, I think is just a wrong course of direction because the state is non-existent. Even those we assume are in it or are in the circles are actually lamenting to us. Okay. Like the general did.
We are due for a short commercial break, and the viewers just don't move a muscle, and see you after this.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Well, guys, let's just get back into the topic because I think it is not enough for us to only analyze the statement without looking at the implication of the statement. And I think I'd posed to the question of, the outlook of the state. Where does this leave the confidence of a citizen who is out there and knows that there is a government in place that is running a state? Then if state officials are coming and speaking from a perspective of, if I'm to borrow your words, the hopelessness, their hands are also tied, then where does that leave the confidence in a Ugandan in terms of, believing that their government actually is a strong state? And Lynn, I don't know what you think about that.
I think one is that we should be in position to remember that the state, the government is inclusive of the people. Because whatever you do, you're doing it because either you're doing it for the people or against the people. And that is why we are going to have issues of corruption and the others that we've always discussed. But I think that it also triggers a role that young people and the general populace have in either advocating for what they wish to be done, but also to show that it is a collaborative effort, that if you do not consult these people and do exactly what they want, most likely you're acting against their will. And when you act against their will, that is why you're going to have issues of pressure on you, issues of riots on you, but also issues of lamentations also from people, which is not lamentations, but which is from a point of a broken spirit. And if people speak from a point of a broken spirit, then they are willing to do even the worst that you could ever think of to get what they deserve or what they think they should be in position to get. But also to remind us that do we have the systems? are they fair enough to us? Or are they working for us? If not for us, whom are they working for? Because power is really a broad concept that we have always discussed. And I think power literally entails everything. If you're powerless, if you're at a vulnerable point, if you cannot show up and speak because maybe tomorrow you're going to be summoned, then most likely it is imploring that you do not have power. And the moment you don't have power as an individual, then you are at a vulnerable state. And the moment you are at a vulnerable state, then you're not going to contribute anything.
But how can the people not have power, Lynn?
That is what I'm saying. Power is...
Kenyans are proving to us that power belongs to the people.
Now, power, to give her a broader context, is that the power that people have is the power within. We have power within ourselves because we want to see things done a different way. But the power over, and the power over is who is in charge of this institution. What power control do they have over us?
Did that matter in Kenya? Whether it was, I don't know who was holding what office, it didn't matter.
Back to my statement.
The youth said,
Uganda as a country.
Enough is enough. Whether you're the Speaker of Parliament, you shall come to that Parliament. No matter what powers the Constitution gives you, you shall enter that Parliament and ask you why you are passing laws that are against the people.
Now that goes back...
We don't care about what power you hold.
It goes back to the question of, are we divided? Do we have one voice as young people? And do we have one voice? No, we don't. We do not have one voice. In as much as you might see this one pushing this, the other, and pushing the other, we still have people who are saying, no, this is okay, no, we are comfortable. But also we still have many young people who feel unbothered. Because maybe today they are earning some money, they are going, they are traveling to their homes, they are having supper. And I think generally it's the normal way. It's the normal way we should see things.
We have a low standard. Like, we are not inspired to dream of bigger. I mean...
Exactly.
We don't know any better. So
exactly, but also Kenya, Uganda, we have a system that has been in place for almost 40 years plus. Now, for Kenya, Ruto has been there, I think, for 2 years now. So, again, Uganda being a militarized country, you do not forget the role that these different entities play in regards to power over. Because power over is not an individual. Power over might be an individual, but the systems also seem to run in a setting of power over. And if they are running in a system of power over, not power for, or power with us as Ugandans, then there is a problem. If you show up today and then, I think the other day we were on a campfire and Honorable Mwiziche mentioned that statistically, the most corrupt is the police. And these are entities we look up to for justice. The judiciary, he puts the judiciary as the second. These are courts of law where we opt and where we think we are going to get remedies. Now, if an entity where you think you're going to get a remedy is an entity that is almost at the front of the corruption, then how do you expect to get it from there? And I think that's a broader question of, do we change the systems? Are the systems working for us? Or do we need to improve some things in the systems to align them with what the masses and what the state actually seems to be or what it should be? If we can only answer questions of systems being fair to the people that they're supposed to serve, not serving against them, then I think we could collaboratively try to solve these issues. Because honestly, I have asked myself a question that if maybe veteran Kainda Otafire was never invited at KIU, would he have never made that statement about corruption? Or would he have never come out to say, no, this is wrong? But again, when do we speak? Do we wait for when the worst gets to the worst? Or do we have preventive measures? Or is it just us speaking? Because honestly, if you can meet him 2 years, 3 years later and ask, how far with that? It's young people should rise up. Young people should do something, you know. Young people can equally contribute. And I think it is very dangerous because if you speak to us with hope, tell us, we have tried to do this, this is how far we have come, this is still failing, how can you come in? But the moment you're speaking from a blank page, an open view, that you're lost and we are also lost, then what way forward?
We are in soul searching. But Mata, let me get to you. And the question that I think Lynn introduces broadly is the question of institutions and their independence and the ability to function. The president about 2 weeks ago appointed or created a new parastatal to oversee URA.
Yeah.
But already we have the IGG, we have the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, you have the judiciary. Now, aren't we, first of all, duplicating responsibility?
You even have an auditing team.
Auditing team, yes. So now, aren't we duplicating? I don't know. The president, isn't he orchestrating, isn't he undermining his own efforts to fight corruption by creating these parastatals? Is that the solution in creating more institutions or strengthening the ones that are there already?
Moses and Micah sanguinities, lack of camaraderie is why we've reached here. Lack of trust amongst people living together. And we should pray for ourselves as a country. If you're creating institutions and yet there are those surviving that have not done their job, I don't think it can help a country of this nature. But I want to run and delve into what my dear sister said. When you look at the political peregrination of these two countries, Kenya and Uganda, they are different. Actually, we are doing a false analogy.
Or we are creating an excuse.
We are doing a false analogy.
You
have a democracy.
I agree with you.
We are having Kenya is having a democracy. It's one of the best in Africa. Highly recognized democracies. You have Uganda. Its peregrination has been entirely under military rule from time of independence.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The King
and
of Canada.
I remember, I may not remember the name, a very senior journalist said that Obote didn't know that by sending Idi Amin to shell off the Kabakazi Palace was communicating to an illiterate Amin that constitution is simply an expedient that can easily be gotten rid of to help a surviving president. That is a political curse we have. For the military to take action and operationalization within the living of a country, it is very bad. First, maybe it informs me, who knows the army and its role, that the one clad in that
Not camouflage.
does not understand what he's putting on. Or it is simply a tool to help the government. So these are two different countries. But also in Kenya, you have a country that has pending cases in ICC for what happened in 2007. You've built institutions. When the late Daniel Torotich Arap Moi passed on, he had already paved the way for a survival of a democracy that would today be Kenya. So he gave them a chance.
And what's the difference with us here?
The difference is that you have a revolutionary government that has been here for 40 years, running to 40 years. Its entrenchment, you have a wider first family. You have people that will ask you, where were you, which small bush were you in Ruwero? You understand? How are you going to satisfy those that participated and contributed? You have in compromises of even going ahead to look for fathers of those existing daughters and sons to compromise them too. That is huge expenditure. A government that has a strong entrenchment, it is hard for you to fight because institutions die. It is important that when you come in power, you don't overstay, however good you may be. Because at the end of the day, what do Ivorians today appreciate from
Sokoture?
sorry, I forgot the name. It was I have forgotten the name.
Not Sokoture.
No,
it's okay.
Ivorians. What do they appreciate from one of their founding fathers?
Let's use Libya. What do
they appreciate? Having built a country for 30 years, but you fail to answer the big elephant in the room, which is a political question. And to all our viewers and the younger people, I think I should take the message of General Severino Kayindo Otafire serious. World over, those that the good thing he has given an example of Libya, what we call the Arab Spring that began in 2011.
Maghreb nation.
Oh yes, all those revolutions you saw, led to be Tunisia, Abdelaziz, but even if
Hosni
Mubarak, Tunisia under Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali, when you go to Algeria, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, it was entirely younger people that went to street and said enough is enough. You understand? So you have a system that has the same. They feel that we still have to run a country until we are dead. It is very deep. It is very dangerous. So Kenya, it has strong systems. It has built institutions to the extent that they are serving. I saw a son of the Attorney General of government of Kenya participating in the demonstrations. But also what we should learn here, young people must be very organized. We've been at Makerere, Moses. You have an institution of 40,000 students, but only 100 students from Mulumba are the one on the streets. We are the 38. You understand? Because there is how government sees it. That force it harangues, exerts.
But you know,
on demonstrations.
It is you who has mentioned the Arab Spring. Tahrir Square was occupied by less than 2 million people for a government to fall down. Yes. So I don't think you need the entire country. You need brave. I mean, actually, in fact, we have gone far. The people who overran the Obote regime were 41 men with 27 guns. So you don't need everyone to, first of all, appreciate the cause and then be a part of it later on.
You see, Moses.
You see, the people who are convicted. Actually, it was even Bob Marley who said, Bob Marley said it, that you don't need to have dreads to be a Rasta. What you need is the spirit of a Rasta inside you. You see, no matter, must everyone come to Kampala or the few brave ones?
Let me continue. You can't be a country of 45 million people and only 1,000 people on streets. You've given a very good example of the Tahrir Square. You had, of course, a spark of a younger man who burnt himself. And that was a spark. And 1 million people marched to Tahrir Square. Let me tell you, Moses, there is no professional army, if you've built a professional standing army, that can quail off a movement of 1 million people. Let me give you an example. Army and the police in Uganda combined together are not more than 150,000 people. They are not. If you had a match, if you mobilized well, because for the case of Kenya, it is not structured. It has simply been social media, the younger people. You've put increment on things that entirely touch us. If it is a chapati, it will be more expensive, and that is entirely
Unga.
Absolutely. So they mobilized themselves because they understood. In Uganda, it is different. I've been telling you, Makerere.
But don't you have issues that can bring us?
I think Ugandans have not reached to the extent of saying enough is enough. I think they are still satisfied with the status quo.
And I think,
I'm telling you.
I think they need to add on that thing of structures. When, for example, he says people have not reached that stage of where they feel enough is enough. I want us to look like at a position like RDC. You have an RDC, you have a deputy RDC, then you have assistant deputy RDC. Like a district, all those three positions are spaces where people are earning money, That's taxpayers' money that could be used to build something elsewhere. And again, also the three are loyal to whoever is the appointing authority, and the three have families that they feed, have families that they look up to, and also have structures. If your uncle, your whole clan, your whole relatives, they're all looking at you as a source of survival. And again, to say that if we don't answer the question of employment,
so it is patronage.
Yes, people feel they are benefiting.
That get a group of elite, empower them,
the structure,
then use them
the
to
structure is very big, that if you stand up in a village in Bushenyi, where I come from, no one will follow you. People will think you're mad. You get? They are not convinced. They are not convinced that there is something wrong. And the moment they are not convinced that there is something wrong, then they will not join you.
But also to add something on what
can't they see?
No, what Council is saying.
Now that is the fear. That is the fear I am talking about.
To add on what Council is saying, having been through military disorganization from time immemorial, we are living with parents who survived during Amin or voted to majority. These are people who I think, in my opinion, are comfortable with what is here today. Because they survived in a time when you had a very repugnant state, a tyrannical regime. So for my mother or father to support you go on the street, actually when you seek for permission from a parent, they'll tell you, please don't go. Because they are telling you.
How different are the times?
Let me finish.
How different are the times? Today, we have
these younger
disappearing that cannot account for.
Moses.
So what has changed? Tell me what has changed. During the Idi Amin era, we used to have people disappear and the state could not account for them. Today, we have seen in Parliament.
Absolutely.
The MPs saying that, wait, where are these people? Where are these people?
Moses, we should be fair to our viewers.
That's why I'm asking you to.
We should be fair.
Analyze.
You can analyze
to create the fairness.
You cannot.
I don't know. Maybe Moses, because my role here is to interrogate further.
Absolutely.
And Moses, be fair to yourself,
and to
your parents, and to this country. You cannot say that Uganda is as it was during Amin and Obote. It is not.
Of course.
Only if you've not read history.
Of course.
Or you've not had a disquisition with those that existed at that time.
There
are many changes.
To who do we owe that change?
Our parents tell you that you could sleep at 5. Today you can sleep on the road.
To whom
we
do we owe that change?
issues to do with the economy.
To whom do we owe that change?
Absolutely the government.
And I think the role of intergenerational conversations
are happenings by some of these things. Today, this is wrong. It is difficult for you to hold a gun and shoot against a people, because I mean, like, there is so much innovation. There is, there's all this internet and what. So I think times have also changed. So it's also hard for government to perpetrate violence.
You see, if you allow me come in.
Yes, Mwanje.
First of all, I am liking the discourse we are taking in this discussion. At first, the comrade said that we shouldn't expand, but I think it was important for us to expand the discussion. And it is creating a big insight. One, I am liking the fact that it is the coordinator of the Yellow Youth movement making such remarks like, we need to question the political answer to transition in this country. We need to interrogate these people. He's putting fingers into the thing. I don't know if he will remain a coordinator, but like the general had a reflection, I think the coordinator is as well reflecting. Because if you follow his remarks very well, you can see someone who is either on the wrong side of the coin accidentally or being intentional to actually criticize the thing. But that being as it may, the question we're having at the moment is that what is failing the Ugandans, right? And we are bringing that from a context of what has just recently happened in Kenya. And I think it gives good insight that it is just false debate or false comparison for us to have Kenya in the same context of Uganda. Mine will be simple. Just look at the way these countries attained their independence. You're talking about a country like Kenya that attained its independence through shedding blood. You had the Maji-Maji, the Mau Mau rebellion, where people had to die. So Kenya is a country.
Should you go back to 1945?
No, let me just give you a history. No, let me just give you a... No. Uganda did not fight. Uganda did not shed blood to have its independence.
As Kenyans. Maybe the magnitude was different, but I think that was yeah.
So you're having a country like Kenya that is known for fighting for its freedom. Let's just go to the times of Toritich Arap Moi, 1990, when the man was saying, we must not have political dispensation, we must not have political parties, and people went into the Sabasaba. By then, those young guys were called the Young Turks. You had the Martha Karua, you had the Raila Odinga, people fighting. Now, Kenya is known to be a country that fights for its freedom. Now, but when it comes to the case of Uganda, we are a country known for having people that lead us to fight for ourselves. That's where the difference is. Uganda has put all its trust and power to those that hold it, which have in the end misused the power. And that's where we have a big challenge. But also, I want to borrow the philosophy of Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a great philosopher. So in one of his writings, he talks about what he calls the proletarian revolution. So the proletarian revolution was a writing addressed to the Europeans about the issues they had gone through. But one of them was about dictatorship. Because you see, for me, if you tackle the issue of corruption deeply, there is no way you will answer that question in isolation of dictatorship. Because you reach a time where a regime that has lived for so long is entangled, is mingled with all the institutions. And therefore, people no longer have power. You know, power belongs to those it belongs. You can't question someone. And that's where we've gotten. So, the longevity of the state in power ends up, you know, accelerating the rate at which corruption grows. And that's a different case with Kenya, like she mentioned. That you have a Ruto who has come in through a democratic process. It might not have been very fair, but it was a democratic process. He can be put to book. You have a revolutionary man who fought and came into power. You will not question him. That's why he said, they will ask you which Kasimal bush you were in. You get? So these are two different things. But Karl Marx says that a country must fight to attain a good level of middle income status. And once that status is attained, things like dictatorship and corruption simply get away dealt with. And they ask him how. He says that by the time a state is able to liberate itself into a middle income status, it has its citizens that reason for themselves, citizens that are ready to fight for themselves. And that is the case with Kenya, which is different with Uganda. The recent budget reading says we are simply at the first layer of the trying to peep into the middle income status. You're talking about a country that has been in the middle income status for close now to 5 years. So the citizenry is now built to a level where it's ready to fight for itself. Ready to fight for itself. But this country is full of elites. I am part of them. We are full of, we are elites. I must say, coward. That's number one. Number two, what she spoke about, selfish in nature. That, Comrade Moses, if you're able to win something to yourself, it does not concern you what happens to the rest of the people. As long as you're able to survive through the system and win something to yourself. But once we are able to liberate ourselves to a certain level of middle income class society, there are certain things that we shall deal away with. But that putting it into now finally the context of Uganda, because we must again, like the general said, we must again interrogate the things he said. Like I said, the information is genuine. The informer was not not very genuine, like I started. But the questions he poses are very important for us to look into. And as a young generation, we must ask ourselves, how are we going to cause the change? Because let me tell you, Comrade Moses and the viewers, it is us to cause the change that we need. Every successful revolution has been a revolution led by youths.
Yeah.
Everywhere, it is the youths.
I think the difference that we forget is that the youth mobilize but forget to organize. Because even in the Arab Spring, when the governments of those Maghreb countries fell down, the people who talk about where you know, old people still.
Yeah,
so I think we mobilize, we make the noise, but then when governments fall, we are not organized enough to...
So this is the clarion call, like you had put into the topic, that can the youth take heed of the call from the general? My answer would be that yes, we need to take heed of the call. How shall we be able to achieve that? Number one, we must have the will. Like, we must have the will. Because you see, when we wait for the leaders to, you know, guide us into this, then we shall not get there. Because the time reaches when those that you rely on fail you. As I conclude, because concluding I must.
You must.
A young girl in the video in Kenya says, Honorable, statesman, Comrade Raila Amolo Odinga, we appreciate for all the times you fought for us. But this is now our time as the young people to fight for ourselves. Shall we have that spirit as the young people of Uganda? Then we shall have answered that call. Let us now rely on ourselves and not those that we think have the power and have the capability. It must be us, and it stops with us.
Fantastic. And to assume those are your parting shots. They sound like...
Unless you give me more time, I still have parting shots.
But well, yes, we have... I will now invite parting shots in 2 minutes each. I'll begin with Mata, moving towards Mwanje. Just look towards the camera. In 2 minutes, give us your parting shots.
Thank you. Now, my message is simple. We've had challenges as a country, and we are simply following this Leaders League. When I said that I think Ugandans have not reached to the extent that they should fight for themselves, it is informed by what is at play. Because you have a Speaker of Parliament, you have senior leaders who you know have stolen, but you welcome them to your churches. I saw Right Honorable Speaker being welcomed at the Catholic congregation during Matters Day. Ugandans, when someone, because our leaders should even be beyond suspicion. The moment someone is suspected of theft, of corruption, we should not even welcome them in our churches. We should, that level of condonation is why we've reached to the extent that someone steals with impunity. A person of Speaker, you run a rally and you say, Namujoy, that is very wrong to ask the younger people that are following your lead. So I think President Museveni, if he's serious this time, he has for over time postured as a serious person. Because now, people think that when we are yellow, we cannot be objective. Let me tell you, Moses, I have not had kids. I will not be happy if regime goes and I have to seek refuge in Rwanda. But that is possible. We've seen it. If you can't learn from your brothers who didn't go to school and you fail to study, at least you have them as an example. That if Moses didn't go to school, he suffered. Why don't you learn from the same? So I am still a very young man. I need a stable Uganda. If you've not organized a transition that is peaceful, because you even have issues. You have generals, their names are engraved in the Constitution, UPDF Act, as permanent members of the UPDF, permanent members of, yes, Security Council. That is wrong. So we must start a discussion, because nature abhors a virtue. We should not let nature dictate the next peregrination of this country. As I said last time I was here, Amanda Gorman, at the inaugural ceremony of President Biden, gave a very wonderful poem. And she said that I will pick what was more important to me. She says that she pleaded to the leaders to leave them America that is better than that they were left with, meaning that we should do better. The younger people, you must understand that it is your role to create and build change. No one is going to fight for you. Those that we are looking at, some of them are in bed with a big man. So they are not those we can trust. At the end of the day, it will be a Uganda of you and I that we shall have to suffer in if we do not touch and force them to give us accountability, as General said. I suppose.
Fantastic. Tracy, Council.
I think my parting shots will zero around the infusion of the different institutions into politics. We are in a country where courts do politics. We are in a country where religion is doing politics. We are in a country where almost all the institutions that we have, cultural institutions, are doing politics. And so we seem to have no remedy. If you go to church today, bishops everywhere, they are glorifying some individuals because they are getting presents, or if you become a bishop, you know you have received a car, not because of anything, but because of someone that has put that standard. And I think, to me, that should be a wake-up call, that people in churches that should be condemning these acts are rather glorifying. So if they don't speak openly on what things are, A is A, because they are going to get 50 million or 10 million after the service, then becomes very dangerous. But also to conclusively say that we are having very many political problems. And I think why we are failing is because we are still trying to find solutions that are political. We are trying to give political solutions to political problems, which might not work. I think that in as much as we are having political problems, let not the solutions become political. Because if we say that corruption is maybe by government or some other individuals, and then again we are saying no, opposition should be the one to rise up and say no to corruption, and leaving behind people, young people maybe in the NRM government and other spaces, it becomes challenging, because we are not trying to find a solution as a team. We are only looking at it because I belong to NRM, my answer should always say yes, should always be yes, should always be in agreement. And I think I've had that criticism over time, because people start to say, but for you, you should just come to opposition or what. And I don't believe in that. I believe that every structure in its formality has issues and challenges that they can remedify. But also I believe that as a team, you cannot all have one collective voice sometimes. There are things by nature of being human that you not view things in the same way. But again, how do you negotiate and align those issues and challenges is what makes the institutions stronger. So if we can polish up where we are not doing well, but also as young people, if we can put our colors aside, if we can put our tribes aside, if we can also put the different things that we are attached to and pride in for the better cause of the general population, then I think we can do something. And it doesn't require you to march, it doesn't require you to do this. You can do something within your means. It could be media activism. Almost every young person has, majority have phones, they are online, they're on Twitter, they're, even though Facebook was closed, but there are those pages that we have. If we can put out something, because the Generation Z is purely running or mobilized online. If we can do that, then we can change something. Lastly, this is not a cause because so and so belongs to this government or this side of the party. This is a cause because it affects all of us, in your colors, in your races, in your religion. It does really affect you. And so if you can collectively come up and do something, then I believe that we shall head for the best. Thank you.
Fantastic. Ndugu Mwanje.
Well, I could say finally that I want to thank you, Comrade Moses, for this wonderful show. I must say that I am getting satisfied. There is a cause for this generation. All hope is not lost. If we can have comrades that are now having dissenting views in a color we thought that could speak otherwise, but are now rising up to dissent, to issues, to question, to ask for accountability, you know, to define opinion. Then to some of us, we are like, Aruta continua. May God bless you all.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mwanje, for your time.
I forgot to urge the youths and the young people of Uganda.
In 30 seconds, please.
Kindly join us on 23rd. I am ready to give leadership and others. We march to Parliament so that they can ask a few questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we saw a group marching from the Honorable Sekikubo's constituency, and they were given,
they were given
access and all.
Absolutely.
So we hope that the same will happen.
Please, Ugandans, join us, and we march to Parliament. They will answer us from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ndugumata. Thank you, Council Tracy and Mwanje, for your time. Of course, to the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Wednesday afternoon on the Youth Roundtable. Of course, to the technical team, thank you for ensuring that our viewers get this show right on time. Until next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.